Hello, and thank you again for joining us. Today is the third and final episode in our bite-sized wellbeing insights. Once again, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by global wellbeing expert Francine Watson. In the previous episodes, we've discussed both the scale of work-related mental health absence and also the commercial impact that this is having for all our organisations. And today we're going to discuss with you how you can really elevate your well-being strategy, and actually how by adopting behaviour change theory, you can ensure that the evolution of your strategy is sustainable.
So thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me again. And while this sounds like quite a complex topic, ultimately there's very few simple takeaways really that you can kind of implement that will help to ensure that your well-being strategy is fit for purpose and that is able to really support the needs of workforces that are becoming increasingly multi-generational, increasingly diverse, and create that really strong foundation for colleagues to manage their well-being. And I wanted to just sort of bring in some stats to help to sort of set the scene, really, if you like. And in February this year, there was a study that was published that was really quite controversial and really sort of shook the well-being world, if you like. So it was by the University of Oxford. They found very little evidence, actually, that individualized interventions, things like meditation, mindfulness, or resilience training specifically, actually improved well-being of colleagues.
Okay.
So that was quite that sort of shook our world
Yeah.
a little bit. But when you start thinking about it a little bit more, it all makes sense. And that's because really the key causes of poor employee well-being actually sort of stem from some of the actual bigger aspects of work itself and the culture in which a colleague might find themselves in.
Yeah.
So this is really thinking about aspects like unmanageable workloads, poor work-life balance, perhaps job insecurity, maybe a lack of role clarity, or sort of a lack of support or not feeling a sense of belonging in your workplace. So those are kind of bigger, kind of more organizational context pieces that organizations need to take into account. So hence that disconnect that was found in that Oxford study, if that makes sense.
Yeah, which makes an awful lot of sense when you mention that. So it's actually more a broader, more holistic approach is really required when an organization is looking at employee well-being, as opposed to just offering up one-off initiatives and thinking, well, put bluntly, we've ticked that box, which some organizations will probably still do that approach. So no, I get that completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's trying to think about well-being as something that sort of within the organizational experience or the colleagues' experience more broadly, rather than seeing it sort of in isolation. And again, this is where some of the behavioral change piece kind of comes in a model that was introduced to me around this idea of sort of a behavioral change being influenced by capability, opportunity, and motivation. And this has really kind of helped sort of bring to life some of those kind of potential levers in a well-being program for me. So if we take the capability piece first, this is really around trying to sort of build an understanding within the colleague themselves around what is well-being. And it's really trying to sort of emphasize that whole person approach to well-being and really thinking about the multiple dimensions of someone's well-being. So it's not just about your physical fitness. Right. So it might also be about your sort of your mental well-being. It might be about your social support networks. It might even be about like the financial well-being or your sense of purpose, right? And purpose doesn't always have to come through work. It might be a sense of purpose that you might have outside of the work context as well. And really having that whole person approach can make sure that the program is much more inclusive and it enables people to sort of better help to sort of identify what might be their own levers. Again, bearing in mind that people at different stages in their life or from different sort of parts of society will have different things that will speak to them to get them into that sort of well-being journey.
Yeah, and again, that makes enormous sense to me in terms of looking at it in that broader sense. But interestingly, flipping back on that and talking about one specific thing you said there, which I think actually is spoken about quite a lot, but perhaps not particularly understood, is this piece around financial health and financial well-being. And what examples can you give around what that actually means for an organization for their employee population?
Yeah, so there's really strong links between financial health and mental health. And I guess my sort of absolute starting point is that it's really important for organizations to pay wages that are fair, that are equitable, and they're livable. That's an unquestionable foundation, right? But we obviously sort of recognize that organizations don't then always have sort of endless sort of resources, right? So the next thing I think, after that sort of really good foundation, is thinking about really how can you bolster that with targeted intervention. So it might be that you have financial education about sort of different aspects of financial capability in there. And you also might want to do things to kind of really promote a greater awareness of the benefits available to colleagues, not just within the benefits enrollment period, but throughout the sort of the year as well, because there might be that you have some employee benefits that are open year round. So kind of really good examples are things like kind of discount schemes, etc., that people can sign up to and make better use of.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Thank you. That's really useful. And you talked about there being 3 facets of behaviour change. So if you're able to share a little bit more about the other 2, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So we talked about capability. The second one is around opportunity, really. So this is really, how do you integrate well-being into the flow of work? And really that kind of, that talks about sort of how do you integrate it into sort of someone's everyday sort of work practices, and really the role of a manager is absolutely key here, because they play a really important role in creating that supportive environment within teams. So this is about really sort of bringing it to life for managers. Again, there might be sort of drop-in clinics, workshops, training programs, etc. for them, but really helping to bring to life to them the role that they play in shaping aspects of someone's experience at work. Like, how do they promote someone's sense of autonomy at work? How do you give them opportunities to sort of grow and develop? How do you sort of respect their sense of purpose they might be having in or outside of work? And then, fundamental as well is ensuring a sense of safety. We talked about psychological safety, but there might also be sort of more physical safety as well to be emphasizing, and really the sense of belonging and support within the team as well. Those are all integral to that sort of well-being of the individual as well.
Absolutely.
And then I guess the final one is then motivation, right? So this is really where the role of leaders, so the leaders in the organization is really key, because when you see others looking after the well-being and prioritizing their sort of self-care, if you like, it really helps to kind of set a positive example that others might then sort of follow, right? So this is where things like leadership storytelling, your campaigns might come in, and you might also have a senior leader support the well-being program or particular well-being initiatives. And that kind of really help people to feel sort of motivated to engage in their own well-being practices. And it signals to the rest of the workforce that actually this is important, it's valued, it's prioritized, we need to make some time for it.
Yeah, and it's also signals that it's okay, I think, as well, because I think that leadership role modeling bit is really, really interesting, and it's actually something that I'm a huge advocate for in all aspects of sort of developing leadership capability in its widest sense, and it's really around humanizing yourself and your own experience. It creates a depth of connection, it creates trust, and really what that enables the team to achieve, but also be open about, I think, is super important in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And leaders don't always have to show vulnerability, like they can do, right? And some choose to do that. But it can also be about talking about how they perform at a high level in a sustainable way. I've seen executives perhaps leave loudly because they want to go to marathon training, or they might sort of visit the gym on their lunch break. But I guess one of the bits that is sometimes a little bit underplayed is the value of rest and recovery. And that's actually a really key piece to high performance. And if you look into sort of the world of elite sport, it's really sort of emphasized. So I was really sort of interested in Federer. He attributes his success to sort of winning his 8th Wimbledon and the 19th sort of career Grand Slam. He attributes to that success to prioritizing rest and sleep. And he also made a conscious decision to sort of not be sort of in any sort of the warm-up round, so he could really sort of save himself for the bit that matters. So I thought that was kind of a really sort of interesting way of bringing to life the importance of rest and recovery. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as a huge tennis and Fed fan, that's a great analogy, and probably a really good place to wrap this up. So Thank you, Francine, so much for your insights over this series. It's been really, really interesting. If anyone hasn't seen episodes 1 and 2, we'll put a link in the comments section below to take you to those as well. As always, we'd really welcome any thoughts, questions, insights. But yeah, all that leaves me to say is thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you on this subject, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Right, thank you very much, Dan.